Story 1. She started dating a friend of mine that I introduced her to, and while it hurt a lot, it was exactly what I needed. It sucked at first, of course, but I realized that I didn't really love her. I just found someone who I thought was beautiful and projected a false idea of who she was onto that. I realized I didn't appreciate or respect myself. That's why I was so infatuated with her and now have adopted the philosophy that if the other person doesn't reciprocate your feelings, it's a clear indicator that there's incompatibility. You're just too caught up in the swirl of things to see it. Now I can look back and realize a ton of red flags that I didn't have the self-respect to properly acknowledge because I wanted her to like me so badly. And I know that while, yes, she's gorgeous, it would have ended messily, and I would have been miserable because there are some real glaring personality flaws on both ends. If you're infatuated with somebody who doesn't reciprocate your feelings and you're still caught up in it, realize that the problem is not that this one girl does not like you. The problem is you don't like yourself and believe that you do not deserve the love and appreciation of someone else. And that's why you treat the idea with such romance, infatuation, and desperation. Because you see it as something rare and unattainable rather than something you deserve. Maybe you're like me, and it's a subconscious belief that has to come out through a lot of self-reflection. But people with healthy self-esteem and healthy self-worth don't tear themselves up over somebody who has no time for them. They go and make time for themselves, do what they want, and find somebody who does have time for them. You can't have her? Yeah, maybe. But I guarantee you there's going to be other girls out there that are way better for you. This one is just your favorite so far. Story 2. I liked a girl in my class at community college. At first glance, she didn't stand out to me. We were placed into a group together and did a lot of review that day as an icebreaker. She stood out by participating a lot. I felt inferior to her and liked how she was a know-it-all. She exuded intelligence and confidence, compared to me who wasn't any of those. She was pretty, and her nose was cute and stubby with nice slanted eyes and dreamy freckles. I didn't think much of her until I was face to face across from her. I was overweight and felt grotesque overall. I felt like the way I wasn't good enough to be hers. I worked up the nerve to ask her to be study partners, and after that, I started to study and become proficient in that class to close the gap and not feel stupid. I was ahead in everything, chapter notes and homework. It became like my first language. I made study guides for the end of each chapter for exams just in case I wanted to give them to her. I was kind of obsessive and went as far as cleaning up my penmanship. We studied and got to know each other by spending time together. I thought things were going well. I shed 50 pounds over that time through better choices in diet and exercise. I was infatuated with her. Wanting her made me less of a recluse. The semester ended, and I didn't hear from her. The new semester rolled in and we had the same class. We studied together too. Through subtle signs and not hearing from her over text, I managed to get a hint. For her birthday, I got her a wax stamp since she said she liked them but decided not to give it to her in the end. I guess I was obsessive and creepy. She was the first person I had strong feelings for. How could I not fall for someone who made me want to be better? I'm not over her. I just accept the way things are and try to look at the good. I still hurt even now. Edit. This story has me sweating bullets, but thanks for the silver. Story 3. Met a woman, became close friends, then friends with benefits, then fell deeply in love with her. This was the woman that I really wanted to spend the rest of my life with. She said she only ever saw me as a friend when I told her how I felt. We had a few contact cuts, the longest lasted maybe a week before one of us reached out to the other. We are best friends now, and she has recently started dating someone. Sometimes it can be a bit hard when she wants to talk to me about him, but I have accepted that she won't ever love me the way I'd hoped. Now I am taking joy in sharing how happy she is. I think I will always love her, but I will find my own happiness eventually. Story 4. I actually fell in love with someone else that I could have and who wanted me back. And I realized everything I had felt until that day had been nothing but childish infatuation. Story 5. I realized I loved the idea of her more than actually her. She was intelligent, beautiful, and would get glances wherever she went. Her not liking me back made me even more driven. Somewhere along the line, she became a challenge and a trophy rather than a human being, and when I realized that, I also realized I wasn't mad into her anymore. I still asked her out, but when she said no, it wasn't crushing. If you're a hopeless romantic, yes, it's the worst thing ever. Otherwise, it's like a missing pet. You get over it sooner or later. Story 6. I'm living it right now. She approached me, but we both have different experiences with relationships and the dynamics involved. The short story is that we both made some minor mistakes that really could have been sorted out with some communication and patience. But life isn't kind like that. Some pretty harrowing family events came up in her life, and at the same time, the trauma from her previous relationship was flaring up as we started to get involved. So, she broke it off 2 weeks later, letting me know that she still really liked me and, once she could sort herself out, she would like to try again. Well, trauma plagues everyone. I have my own, and having her come in so intensely and then immediately pull away, but still wanting to be around, affected me deeply. I spent 2.5 weeks thinking about nothing but how I could fix it. I was in a state of constant emotional torment. I replayed the situation 1,000 times, pulled it apart, switched pieces around, viewed it from every angle I could, and put it back together piece by painful piece. I learned a lot about myself, what my understanding of relationships is, how it came to be that way, what past emotional trauma caused what damage, and which mannerisms and tendencies developed as a result of that, why I view things the way I do, and why I do the things I do. It was eye-opening. I have some work to do. I analyzed her as much as I could too, and thank God we are both incredibly transparent with each other. I could talk to her about it to try to glean some clarity for why she was the way she was and did the things she did. But more than that, I realized that there was nothing to fix. Her defense mechanism is to shut off emotionally, and she cannot commit to a relationship while in that state, especially not a budding one. That's something she needs to conquer, and she said as much. So, I'm still in the process of reeling myself back from the overcommitment I put into what we had and trying hard to place her back as a friend. I took a week to distance myself from her while she was out of town, and I think the space helped dull the pain. I would love to say that the space in my heart I'd so happily and lovingly carved out for her reconvened and healed up in her absence, and that I'm moving on without the weight of the past to slow me down. I'd love to say that I've healed my aching, broken heart, and I'm ready to search for new opportunities. That nothing can keep me down, and this was a lesson learned. But man, I don't operate that way. Edit. I did not expect so much support. Thank you so much. I am sorry to hear there are so many going through the same situation. If I knew how to fix it or at least make it not hurt anymore, I would eagerly share it. I wish you all the best, and I hope that whatever happens, you come away better for it. It'll take time, but this too shall pass. Story 7. I imagine the reaction from her boyfriend's perspective if I successfully stepped in. I wouldn't want that done to anybody, enemy, friend, or random stranger. If he makes her happy, then I'm happy for that. Story 8. They were my closest and best friend, and I cut them out of my life. The hardest choices require the strongest wills. They were the only one for me. No matter who else I dated, it always came back to them. But regardless of the circumstances, I was always her backup plan. I removed her from all forms of social media and moved across the country. Story 9. I let myself grieve and temporarily take a step back from that person. Stuffing the sadness down or ignoring it just makes it worse because that person will always be on my mind. At some point, I noticed that my feelings towards them have changed. I usually still love that person, but I care for them in another way. Since I've had my distance, I can figure out that what I want more than anything else is for them to be happy, which means, in the end, I'm happy to see them happy with someone else. It really is essential to grieve for that to be possible, though. Story 10. A bit more than a year ago, I met a lovely girl at my friend's birthday party. We had an absolutely amazing conversation and great chemistry. One little problem was that she had a boyfriend, who later arrived at the party. I switched to a more reserved mode, talked to him as well, and in my mind closed the whole thing. The plot twist came soon after, as the girl and I still talked afterwards, every day. Even when she was with her boyfriend, whom she broke up with basically 2 weeks after we met. At that point, I was starting to fall madly in love with her. The only problem was that I already knew I would be moving abroad permanently, and she is a judge, so her career ties her to the country. I also didn't want to be the rebound guy. We stopped talking and never even had a date. Story 11. You just have to accept it and move on, or you are torturing yourself over something you cannot change. Yes, it really sucks, but crying about it is not going to bring her back or make her love you. Story 12. 6 years ago, I fell for a girl in high school who didn't even know me. She got to know me after I messaged her on Facebook. A part of me knew that she was way out of my league and would never even consider dating someone like me. In 3 years, we bonded very well, but were nothing more than best friends. Initially, I just adored her nature, body, and looks, but later on, I completely fell for her to the point that anything I did, she would always be on my mind. It was not a good feeling. Rather, it was extremely painful. Given that I was born into a very conservative family and that I was an introvert, it was very hard to deal with all that without opening up to her or anyone else for that matter. A year later, I was in depression because of many things that went wrong in my life. That phase of my life is very important to me as it changed me completely. For good. I was depressed for several months, but when I came out of it, I decided to just eliminate everything that hurt me mentally so that I never go back to that state. It's very hard to explain the fiery feeling that I felt at that time, but it was life-changing. I realized that all those years I was just a platonic friend to her, whom she would talk to only when everyone else was busy. She used to ignore me when she was around other people like I was a stranger. But I blindly overlooked that every time because I loved her. She used to do a lot more things which were enough to indicate that I was just a source of entertainment for her and nothing else. I finally realized all of this and opened my eyes and slowly stopped talking to her. It sure was not easy, but with every step that I took away from her, I felt better, and my mind was out of the chaos. I guess the best way to overcome this poisonous feeling of one-sided love is to just delete their existence from your life. You might not want to do it, but it is the only way. Focus on self-improvement like I did by learning about the game and starting to work out. Music helped me a lot. I couldn't listen to pop songs, as they all seemed to glorify love, so I switched to rock and punk. A big thanks to the band My Chemical Romance. It gave me the mental peace that I needed. It does take some time, but if you keep trying, you will finally get there. Story 13. I had to stop seeing her through my eyes and start looking at her with perspective. I ended up coming to realize my love was being wasted on someone who didn't want it. So I ended up giving it to someone else who wanted my love. Story 14. A long night with my friends whom I love, with a couple of cigars, a bottle of Redbreast, and a good long hike, talking about life together and the good old times we have had. Downtime is a pretty good cure-all. That, and honestly focusing on how to improve yourself. Even though I am pretty happy in life, improvement always makes those blue days fewer and farther between, and everyone can make small improvements every single day. They add up, and I never thought I could do half of what I have. Do something like that yourself, and it should help you find your place in the world. Good luck, man, and cheers! Story 15. Like a bullet from a gun it burns. When you realize she was never your girl, it was just your turn. Skepta. I don't know why, but with one particular girl, this really helped me, especially with Skepta being one of my favorite artists. It helped me come to terms with the fact that nothing could be done, so you just have to move on. Story 16. Finally came to a realization that I shouldn't try to date someone who wasn't into me, and vice versa, because around the same time, I had someone pursuing me and I had zero interest. Story 17. Loving someone isn't about possessing them. If you love someone, you are happy that they are happy. Of course, with romantic love, one desires to be loved in return, but if you truly love this person, try to enjoy their happiness and not focus on yourself. Story 18. Listening to music, taking walks, trying to get into eating again, starting off small, chatting to friends about it, also talking to new people helps too. It will happen to most of us, sometimes more than once or twice, it's normal. Story 19. Internet friend. She lives halfway across the planet, but I love her. I'm still not sure what to do. She might see this because we met on Reddit, so hi Farah. Story 20 time. This happened a few times now, and time was the only cure. Partly because I just recovered and slowly pieced my heart back together, but also because, slowly, time showed that we weren't all that compatible after all. I had a gigantic crush on a friend when I was 19 who dated someone else. 10 years later, they've broken up, and he's married to another woman. He's balding. He is very compatible with his wife in a way I never would be. You know what? Good for them. Another guy I thought was the one that got away. He became an insurance lawyer and, while lovely, is that sort of Suits-esque ego tripper that I'm not sure I would be able to date while keeping a straight face. He has a lawyer wife with a huge diamond ring, and they take their golden retriever to brunch at trendy cafes. Good for him. Another one didn't want kids. He lost his job and, without kids, doesn't really have any incentive to make stacks of money and basically does what he wants when he wants, the way he wants it, and still lives in a share house. Good for him. Finally, my most recent was a super surfer, and I was always playing second fiddle to gnarly tubes. He never had time for me because he was always more interested in what the swell was doing. Guess what? He's still doing it. Good for him. In 10 years, you'll look back and go, oh wow, that was never going to work. If you're lucky, their looks will take a hit.